woman like you. You're gonna be just like his holy. He's so mighty, yes he is.
Hi, I'm Lonna Hardin, singer, author, speaker, and host of Flawless Women. Thank you for joining me for this week's show. It's created to offer hope and inspiration to hurting, broken women who need a safe space to heal, let down their hair, and get real. So sit back, get ready to embrace your flaws, be healed, become flawless from the inside out, and reflect the heart of God. Let's jump right in. Let's get flawless. Our guest today is Dr. Royand Hendrix, affectionately known as Dr. Rowe. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Rowe. Dr. Royand P. Hendrix started her career as a special education teacher at a middle school in Dallas, Texas. She is graduate of Grambling State University and a mother of two. Her career started as a middle school teacher, like I said, but her lifelong mission is to serve. As she moved throughout the educational system as an educator, she knew her purpose. Teacher, curriculum specialist, professor, school district administrator, and child teacher advocate. She is a purpose-driven woman with a love for music and a passion for people. Did I tell you guys she has a group as well? I'm gonna let her tell you guys more about that. She plays the clarinet fearlessly, you guys. And not only that, but Dr. Hendrix is the founder of Dream Education Consulting and executive director of Kensington Arts and Education. She is also the author of The Testimony. And guess what? She is flawless in every way. And so I just want to take the time to personally say, welcome to the show, Dr. Rowe. How you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I am doing well. I'm doing very well.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure for me to have you here. I'll just quickly start. There's so much I want to talk about today. You are a woman of many talents. Many talents. And it's so funny because I hear that about myself all the time. But when I meet somebody that's actually running a little bit faster, it's an inspiration to me. Listen, it's an inspiration to me. And so I want to start by first saying I was blessed to meet you actually about 2.5 years ago. And I say blessed because we weren't even in the same city or state or space. And someone just said, you have to meet my sister. And they connected us. You remember, and I think they called on the phone and somehow we ended up following up. But it's been really just a sisterhood, I can say, from the moment we met. And I appreciate that. So I really just wanted to share more about you with our audience. I think that you're a phenomenal mother in every way, a phenomenal woman. And so let's first of all start off, because I think one thing we have in common is that we're both single mothers, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. And not just single mothers in the fact that, oh, we're single mothers as in a label, but single mothers that actually care about legacy and planting and building for the next generation. And I think that's one of the things we share in common. So let's kind of start off just by talking about your journey as a single mother. I know you didn't start off as a single mother and then you found yourself as a single mother. How did you make that transition into that? But then also, how did you make the transition and still end up growing a business, not one, but two? How did you do that?
By the grace of God, I got married very young. Well, not that young. I was 21, 21 years old, to my college sweetheart at the time. And things just did not, pan out the way that I, wanted it to. And so I ended up, being a single mother. Definitely not financially. My children's father, my ex-husband, has always been there to support them financially and just, pretty much whatever they needed. Just things didn't work out between us. Now, initially, I always blamed him, but when you have an opportunity to do some soul searching. And when you look inside yourself, you no longer blame somebody. You know, you kind of look at yourself and say, well, you shouldn't have done that. And you shouldn't have done that. And, you know, you should have done this. But, you know, I just encourage everyone, and I encourage myself now, you know, you just do the best that you possibly can with what you know how to do and what's comfortable. And, you know, and when I think about comfort, there is no growth in being comfortable.
I agree.
There just isn't. And so through that divorce and a lot of other traumatic experiences that I've had since then, and in my middle-aged adult life, I am middle-aged.
Right. And only getting younger, by the way.
Because my children are in their 20s. You still have, you know, a child at home. So I'm a single mom, but I wouldn't really say I'm that single mom, you know. But going back to being comfortable, there is no growth with being comfortable. And so I've challenged myself in recent times, I'm saying in recent times, to be uncomfortable, because that's where growth takes place. It's so easy to wake up and do exactly what you know how to do. But when you start to challenge yourself and have like a strong sense of self and self-awareness and self-reflection, the sky is really the limit for you. And so you no longer feel as though you have to wear some armor of being perfect. You know, I used to really thrive and, you know, really feel good about myself and have my chest all stuck out when people would say, Ro is superwoman. I really thought that was something great, superwoman. But I was dying inside trying to be superwoman and trying to be perfect. You know, I'm a true Virgo. And to all of your followers and listeners and those, you know, are looking, you know,
Stop.
Perfection and those Virgo tendencies can really kill you, not necessarily physically, but emotionally. And so it's just important for, you know,
I'm gonna be honest with you.
Your flawed self, because I'm very flawed. I know this is about flawless. I'm not.
I still think that it's not even about Virgo. It's anybody who's trying to be that perfect person, because I think that humanity and the ability to touch humanity and be touched by humanity is what makes us the only thing that makes us flawless, because that brings you into community and oneness. But I just think that perfecting process, everybody has to go through it. And it's all about, like you said, being uncomfortable. It's all about choice. Some people choose to take the challenge and some people don't. But if you want to grow, you have no other choice but to rise to the occasion. So yeah, I mean, I think every week after week we've been talking to people, and that's the biggest theme, is that there is no such thing as being flawless, but there is the desire to want to be better. Right. And I think that that's what separates the people that are in the comfort status quo versus those who kind of want to get out the box and do something different, you know. But you said a mouthful, and you talked about trauma and some traumatic events, but I also want to back up and say, you're from Chicago, right?
Chi-town. The
South side. So some of you be like West Side, South Side, right? South side,
right there in Beverly.
Yes. And you are the author of the testimony. So I've had a chance to read your book, but also to get to know you personally, and know a little bit of background about your story. And this, you know, Black girl from the South Side, right, was on a mission from the time you were out of school, right? You came out running, right? And I know one of the things we've talked about is your parental support, and how, you know, I really love when you talk about your parents and the way that they pay for you and the doors and opportunities they open for you. And I'm a really big proponent of us building on what our ancestors have done and the sacrifices that have been made. So let's talk a little bit about how a girl from Chicago South Side ended up in Dallas, and not just ended up in Dallas. I mean, you ended up doing amazing things, infiltrating the school system. And I say infiltrating because that's how I feel like it. I apologize, but you know what? The school system is one dimensional, so I say infiltrating. But you went into the school system and you just took off running. You didn't stop. You went from teacher to a school administrator. Now you have these nonprofits. You have a organization. You're consulting universities now. You're doing all these amazing things, and it all started with the seeds that were planted in Chicago South Side. So let's talk about it.
Well, definitely have to give praises where praises are due.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to my loyal, wonderful, giving parents, very loving, Roy and Vivian Patrick. They were transplanted from the South, you know, during the Great Migration.
Which part?
A better way. My father is from Memphis.
Okay.
And my mom is from a little small town called Sylvester, Georgia. Not too far from Albany, Georgia. But they instilled so much in me, you know, and they just made sure that all of their children understood the importance of education, the importance of treating people well, treating yourself well, having self-respect. Because of my parents, thank God I never had student loans. My parents funded through their hard work and sacrifice. Now see, I used to wear, it was like a little department store called Venture back in the day, where I didn't have Nikes. I had some Skips. I wore Skips to school. And sometimes I was teased because I didn't have the name brand. Well, I mean, having name brand clothing and expensive cars and things like that, it was not important in my parents' household. It was education and just be decent. Speak grammatically correct. That's what, some of the things that my parents taught me. And so because of their sacrifices, they funded all of my education, my bachelor's degree from Grambling State University, my master's degree from the University of North Texas, my principal certification, as well as my superintendent certification from the University of North Texas, and as well as a whole doctorate degree. And so when you have that much given to you by God's grace and mercy, you have to give back. You just have to give back. And so, as a student at Grambling State University, I found my love and my passion to teach. I just loved it. And I started when I was 21 years old in Dallas, Texas, at a middle school. And I did teach children with special needs. And I wondered, why can't these babies read? Because Marva Collins said, if you can't read, you can't do anything. And I wanted them to learn how to read. But when you're in middle school, the curriculum doesn't dictate for you to teach children how to read. And so I moved myself down to elementary and found a passion for now loving elementary.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, just to pause, you talked about traumatic events, and it's interesting because when you talked about, we'll get into the book later, testimony, which is so powerful. I love the illustrations in the book, and I love the simplicity, but it's a powerful, powerful book, a very healing book, as a matter of fact. Yeah, the testimony by Dr. Rowe. And it's powerful. Maybe we can have a chance to just show one or two illustrations when we start talking about it. But I wanted to talk about how you were talking about your parents really instilled education in you as a child.
Mhm.
And we haven't really touched on the traumatic events. I don't know if we'll touch on them, but one thing I want to say is, as a result of you having this passion for education, overcoming traumas, you're now able to help other people, and you do that at a very deep level. You work with special needs children, but you also work with some hard cases. I know we've been on the phone and I've heard about some hard cases that you've
Mhm.
had to deal with, and you've been resilient in those, and you've also actually been able to help families who may not understand what the children are even dealing with. So let's move into that, because I think that um we know each other from business, so you know some of my initiatives and the things that I'm working on. I know your initiatives, and I think that a lot of times people look at the education as a one size fits all type of thing, and it's not. There are real disparities. There are real children out there that are being left behind. And I want to have this conversation with you because you're right at the level. So you've seen these every day. So help us to kind of really understand, first of all, a day in the life of a person like you who's helping children at that core level, and then some of the barriers that educators face and that these families face.
That's a loaded question. I'll try my best to unpack it
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I too have ADHD and my mind sometimes bounce around.
right.
So you're speaking about the work that I do with Dream Education Consulting and Special Education Advocacy. And so with the advocacy service that we provide is to actually attend IEP meetings, IEP, the Individualized Education Program, okay, or plan, you may hear, for children with disabilities. I like to call them special abilities. And so as an advocate, it's just very important for my clients who are children and their parents, but their parents, and depending on what age the child is to understand the implications of their disability, from learning disabled to, or an intellectual disability, to autism. I mean, just the whole gamut. There are implications. And because of that, it's important for educators and the system to understand that and form policies and procedures and instructional opportunities that address that. And so when you think about challenges, sometimes the policies that are created, they're generic and they're not inclusive. And that's one thing that I have taken a deep dive into the past couple of years, is not just the diversity aspect of organizational management and curriculum development, but truly the E and the I part of DEI. Equitable, right? And then also to be inclusive. And so when you are working with individuals that sometimes don't have that level of self-awareness, or you have organizations where they say, hey, I am diverse. Our company is diverse. We have Black people, we have white people, we have whatever. Okay, it's easy to hire and then, be a part of all of that. But when you get to the hardest work, okay, the most challenging, and that's to be inclusive of that, that's when you start to get pushback. So that would be a challenge as well, is for me to help organizations and nonprofit leaders and organizational executives to understand that hard work, which is to be inclusive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, so, I'm from the Midwest. We're both from the Midwest. I think that you obviously came from a larger market, lot more reach. I ended up growing up although I was from the Midwest, I grew up in Texas, where you are now. So I know that the barriers there's multicultural barriers, there's all type of that, and I think that I'm grateful for that exposure that I had to that, because diverse perspectives are always good in any situation. And so I think when you're talking about inclusivity, equitable, it's like a buzzword now. But when you really dig down to the core of actually, like you said, the organizational management pieces and the leadership and the group think is where it has to spill over to, because if it doesn't, then it doesn't reach the bare minimum of the people that it's supposed to, like the children. So it's good to hear at least there's one voice that is able to resound that. And I know that there's multiple people now in the education system, but I was just in a meeting today, which is why I wanted to kind of talk on it a bit, and didn't realize that COVID was causing even more barriers for people. I've heard about it, but hearing the actual numbers now, the student to teacher ratios and some of the other things that are happening right now, I think that it is important that people realize that, even though it may seem like, oh, it's just for special needs, there are far more number of children that are impacted by IEPs. My state was really low for that. They actually got called out on it, because most of the time if you don't have providers like yourself to deliver those specialized services, there's still a disconnect. Do you guys find that in Dallas, or do you find that? Because I find that children with IEPs, they tell you, because my daughter had an IEP.
Okay.
And I'm a success story, and I share that, and we share it when we talk to people. We were fortunate to meet an educator just like you, who said most of the time, if you don't catch these children by the time they're in the second grade, they're never going to catch up. So we were able to assess that. She had an IEP. I often had to fight with people because she didn't have really big challenges, but it was enough as a parent for me to say, yeah, but I still need this help, because there's going to come a time where whatever this is, she's still going to have to manage through it.
Well,
And
go ahead.
And I remember sitting in the meetings and them always handing me these big long books and saying, okay, you can always, if you want to continue, you can, you're supposed to legally be able to. But I remember when I would get into the meetings, I often didn't feel like I had power as a parent. I felt like it was the person delivering the services and whatever the school felt that was the recommendation. And I don't know why I even brought this up, but I'm just saying that I don't think people realize that just because your child is actually given an IEP does not mean they're going to actually benefit from the services. And it's up to the parent to reinforce and work with the educational and the educators and to be a part of that conversation. And I really think that's what helped in our situation, because now my daughter reads 3-4 years in advance. Now she's writing, now she's doing all these things. But I can only imagine that the people that are not able to articulate their frustration, able to, as you said, understand the implications, right? I can only imagine the struggles that they're having. So I didn't mean to go into that, but I just think it's important.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
You're fine. And you're absolutely on target. It's not just children who receive special education services or any type of specialized service. Anytime you're working with youth or really anybody, you really have to understand how they learn. And I always ask the question, what is John's learning style? And sometimes when you ask those questions, they start to get glossy eyed, they're like, well, what is she talking about? John might be a visual learner, but if you have the facilitator or the teacher just standing there, with these auditory practices, John is not going to get it.
Right.
Or if you have Jessica, who's an auditory learner or kinesthetic, those needs have to be met. And I have to mention just being culturally responsive.
Right.
You have to understand who and what you're working with, And so as a curriculum designer as well, and a practitioner who designs and facilitates professional development for adult learners, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
It's the
The
same
same
thing.
thing.
It just doesn't change,
It
you
doesn't.
know, maybe slightly, because when you're dealing with adults, you better make that immediate connection to what they're already doing. If not, you've lost them, you know? And so, you know, kids, they may pay attention to you just a little bit more, but both learners, youth and adult learners, it's just extremely important to make those cross-cultural connections, as well as, you know, just really understanding, you know, the learner and what they bring to the table so you can convey that content.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I love when you share that, because even as a parent, even if you just take the educator piece out, if you don't know your child's learning style,
Mm-hmm.
I am auditory.
Mm-hmm.
So auditory, you want to talk, 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 talk. A visual learner is checking out. Okay. Like they need pictures, they need all these things. So I think that's like the common ground. When we connected, it was on this whole idea that every child deserves a quality education. Every child deserves to have that experience. And we both have a love for music. So let's go ahead and talk about the music piece, because before we started, you guys, I might include it, I might play it, I don't know yet, but I have it for my record, just so you know. She was playing, y'all. She plays amazing jazz, clarinet, but also you still have your group, right?
I do. It's been kind of hard, you know, getting, you know, everyone together. The girls, it's Ebony Wins, but I do want to kind of backtrack to the beginning of my love for music. I actually started playing my mom's clarinet when she was a little girl. The
Oh, wow.
clarinet that she had when she was in high school. And so I started when I was 9 or 10 years old, and was classically trained. I was classically trained, so I know how to play Bach and Beethoven and all that.
I know. I'm like, I know you already played, but you know, feel
I know
free
how
to
to
get.
play was written on a paper, but very recently I'm learning how to improvise, and that was just so hard. And I make that, you know, correlation to how I live my life, to kind of improvise, just, you know, go with it. Everything that is written, that doesn't mean that that's what you have to do. You know, everything that you think about, everything that's in print, everything that's etched or drawn or painted in a picture, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to just stick with that. And so that's why it was just so hard for me to understand how to improvise. Teacher, her name is Doreen Ketchens, and you can find her on the streets of New Orleans. She's absolutely phenomenal. She's all over the world, a world-renowned musician. I'm so thankful that, you know, she's teaching me how, but I actually went out and kind of stepped out there, and once again, an uncomfortable place, to learn something new, because I was always in awe, you know, with musicians that just stand up and, hey, what key is that? Oh, okay, E flat, all right, and then go with it. I'm like, how do they do that? I need a piece of paper, and I need for those notes, those 16th notes and those quarter notes and that chromatic scale to be written. Maybe not the chromatic scale, but you get what I'm saying. So I've actually used my love for music and my desire to play jazz to apply that to my everyday life. I'm not that good at it though, but I'm learning, and it's okay.
Y'all, she front. I'm a letter front for y'all, but I've heard her now. I've heard her now. Okay. And if I don't want to put her on the spot because she already played for me and it was so amazing. And Ebony Wins, if you're in when things open up again, if you're in the Dallas area, you guys actually do move around and have shows and things. And I mean, it's amazing. And kind of tell them more about the group, because it's all women, but it's actually, what is it? Tell us about it.
It's all women, all woodwinds. And so we have a couple of clarinets and a flutist. And we're just, you know, trying to get it together. It's a brand new group. It's actually a program of our nonprofit, Kensington Arts and Education. because with Kensington, we actually use music and the arts for our professional development, and we use it for our social emotional learning programs and wellness programs for teachers and educators. So, with Kensington, you can step inside one of our sessions and you might find principals and school executives, analyzing art, but it's related to the content that we're there to facilitate. So it's pretty cool.
And when I've seen progress. When I've seen it, it's been looking like I've never had a chance to attend yet. We've been communicating now for a long time, sisterhood, but it always looks like you guys are having a blast.
It's a lot of fun.
Yes.
It's just a blessing where you can, take your talents and, your skills and your desires and fuse that in with, some other things and make something, great and enjoyable for others. So super excited about the trajectory of it. And also, just growing those programs. Yeah. That's what it's about, growth.
And then when we met, I just want to segue into this, and we're almost done, but I really want to just talk about a couple more things. Is when we first met, I know you were going to, I don't think it was Trinidad. You actually, as a part of Kensington Arts and Education, you guys do a program in another country, correct?
In the Bahamas.
In the Bahamas. Okay.
And I have to correct you because when you introduced me as the executive director of Kensington. The executive director of Kensington is Nicole Angelica. And she is an amazing artist and businesswoman. And we met several years ago, and she realized, my passion and my purpose, and really felt like I wasn't, using it to the best of my ability. She's actually an artist as well, and the illustrator of my book. So all of the images and visuals that you see in the testimony, it's actually the amazing work of Nicole Angelica. I'm just the director of education, but we are both the founders, and we're excited about our work. The whole pandemic threw a monkey wrench in it, like most small businesses, but also threw in some blessings too, because we've been able to kind of come back to the table and think of some other ways to support the community and youth. So look out for Kensington Arts and Education.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to just touch on the fact that I know you guys are like peas in a pod, you're partners, and you guys do everything. Every time I see a program, I see you guys both facilitating them mostly together. I remember there was an exhibit that I think she was actually showcased her work I can't remember that, but that was powerful as well.
Well, that was actually the African American Museum of Dallas. She was showcasing her work, and then also speaking about my book. I was unable to attend because I was attending a conversations with Dr. Rowe in Auckland, New Zealand, where my book was featured at a local bookstore. So it's just very important to work together. That's something that I have learned to do. I wasn't always a team player. I wanted to do it myself. I thought I knew everything, that whole thing, but when you go through life and, you understand the mistakes that you've made, you become more embracing and tolerant and of other people and just the way they do things and the way that they do things, that it might be different from the way you do things, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. That's something that I learned the hard way.
Yeah. So you have extended an olive branch. You guys have not just impacted Dallas, Texas, you're impacting other parts of the world. Reach with your story, with your music, which has been awesome. And I've enjoyed hearing you play today and just seeing the amazing things that you guys are building. I know that you are even branching out now to more educator development professional, which is really one of your strong points as well. So now let's just talk about, before we come to a close, let's talk about the testimony, because you truly do have one. And
I have a few. I have a few.
yeah,
As you continue to live, you just build on, your testimony, where you just have several testimonies in so many different areas.
well, and I think you are a testimony. I think you as a person can become a testimony. So all those stories into one person and your life and the trail that you leave. So I won't go into detail in the book, because I think it's important that people support and purchase it, and really, understand that um it's not what you go through, it's how you come out on top, it's how you carry the grace, and how you evolve from whatever it is you go through. But I will say, from reading the book, because I had a chance to get it when it first came out, it was very inspiring. The artwork was immaculate, the concepts, the healing that was unleashed in it. I really wouldn't have never even known your story. And something I never shared with you when we talked about it was just that, you said what I think a lot of people wanted to say. And I think that you were a voice for many people who were dealing with a lot of those issues, and just didn't have the ability to really talk about it. So
And still, see, the thing about growth and self-awareness, you don't I don't have it figured out all the way, and that's okay. I truly do believe that once I just have everything figured out, my time in life and on earth is over. So while I do have a dissertation that's published, centered around culturally efficient leadership, and while I do have, my book, The Testimony, A Pinnacle of Darkness and Light, the work still continues. That inner work still continues. And every day when I wake up, I have to remember my passion, my purpose, and stay focused on that. Because when I don't, when you don't, when, we as humans don't, that's when, our emotions kind of become unraveled, and we may not necessarily, do things that really are pleasing to ourselves or God, right? And so, with that being said, every single day, I wake up and I just try to put my best foot forward. That's what I can say. I just try to do the best that I can. That's what I always tell people. Babe, I'm just trying to do the best I can with a couple of brain cells that I have. And I don't always, reach to where I want to be, and mistakes are made, and they're made all of the time. And you know what? I look at myself in the mirror and I tell myself, and it's okay.
well, it is
It's
okay.
okay. It's okay.
And I think every great business professional I know, or a person who's done anything, one theme that's been sticking out this year already is progress, not perfection. But it is progress, though. That's the point. And I think that one of my purposes in life is to push people past excuses. Because I think often far too many of us have them. And it's like, you are a creator. You are a person that has the power to create and to do whatever it is. So you can either talk about it or you can be about it. It's like, that's the only choices you have. And hopefully you are about it. And like you said, so when you give your last breath, you can at least look back and say, I feel good about what I contributed, And so that's how I tend to look at it. And I just think that, we live in a generation, at least from my vantage point, like you, I don't know everything. I was listening to somebody last night who said, put the circle in it. And when you can see, that's probably about all that you see, right? And I think the older that I get, I realize how much I didn't see when I was younger and how much I thought I knew.
Nothing like wisdom. It's nothing.
But
like
I mean,
wisdom.
I didn't need the gray hairs. I could have just, you know what I'm saying? I could have just lived
with a little blonde. I have mine covered with a little blonde.
Look, but I will say this. I think there's a generation right now that is definitely hungry for something different. And I learned from this generation, to be honest, the way that they move, but I still think that authenticity goes a long way.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
just being able to accept where you are, but know that wisdom is powerful, wisdom is good,
Absolutely.
wisdom is valuable,
Absolutely.
right? And so that's kind of why we started the show. We started the show because it's really not about us. We're doing our thing, right? We at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, whatever we've done is what we've done, right? But hopefully we leave something that the next generation or the next person or the next woman can glean from and learn from, and not have to make the same mistakes that we did. And so that's why I really wanted to make sure that I invited you on the show. We've always talked offline, but I just appreciate what you're doing, and the value that you're bringing, not just to our generation, because we from the same generation, but for all them little babies out there, you know what I'm saying? The babies. It's all about the babies.
The youth, those millennials, and what is it? The X generation. Wait, what
They
generation?
call they. I mean,
Z
they got
generation.
Z generation. They got
I get mixed
E
up. I know
generation.
it's some letter.
Yeah, Z generation Z generation
But
E
just like
too.
one of the last few statements that I do make in my book, the testimony is, what have you done with all that I have given you? That's God speaking to us. And I think really, at the end of the day and at the end of our lives, we want to, say, I did the best that I could with the gifts and the talents that were given to me. And so that's what I truly do strive to do every single day. Like I said, I don't always make the mark, but it's okay. But I do appreciate, Lonna, you having me here on your show. I wish you nothing but success as you know, have these flawless conversations with other women to impart knowledge and wisdom and spark growth and all of that great stuff into not just the youth, or the millennials, but just to whoever hears it. It is a show that is geared towards women, but when you talk about being your best self and when you talk about being flawed, flawless, all of that is just important for every ear to hear. And I do pray that as many ears listen, not just with their ears, but with their minds and their hearts, with what you are accomplishing with this show.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dr. Rowe. Well, you know how I feel about you. We the same. Look, we the same on camera and off camera. So we we the same. So
I'm glad you didn't
anyway,
make me cry on camera, because y'all, she had me
no.
crying with that prayer. It's like, when it's divine. I gotta look at the camera real good. When it's divine, when someone is praying for you, right? And they speak everything that you're experiencing right now. Like everything. I'm like, does this girl have surveillance on him? But I do thank God for you, and I'm so excited that we are business partners and friends and sisters and prayer partners and
Yes.
all that great stuff. It really does matter.
Yeah, it does matter.
Mana's life matters.
Dr. Rowe, don't you start cutting up
You know what I'm saying? You cut up here.
It's all good. That's why I wanted you to come on the show. I appreciate you so much. I generally ask some questions. I feel like this was a great conversation. I don't know if you have a favorite scripture. Do you have a favorite scripture?
I really don't.
Okay.
I love.
Yes, you love the Lord.
There's so many scriptures that I do love, and there's so many scriptures that I need to learn. But I am growing in my faith, and I just ask that you pray for me with that.
I always pray for you. I was hitting that song. I said, I love the Lord.
Bingo.
You remember that time we were on the phone and I just broke out? I can't remember that song. I remember that. I remember I was like, you said this girl, but it was a great moment.
Baby,
Because
she will bust out some lyrics in a minute.
That's why I had to have you play for me today. But anyway, we're all growing, Dr. Rowe. We're all growing. And so you said something, and I say that all the time. I just started, I told you my group, because I think that people, there's all different types of struggles. There's all different types. There's personal, there's professional, there's all type of, there's spiritual, there's all of these things that, you know, no matter how you step forward and you put your face forward, people don't know the backstory.
Right.
And it's always the backstory that everyone talks about when you're gone. That's the one, oh, you didn't know she overcame this. You know, the accomplishments don't necessarily mean as much. You know what I'm saying? People might celebrate that for a moment, but it's really, how did you get from point A to point Z? And when you hear about great people and who have sacrificed, it is those flaws. It is those hardships. It is the testimony that inspires people to keep going through whatever they're facing. And so that's what my prayer is. My prayer is just that people know that. I always say, you know, my company is Live Your Song. And so I always say life is like a song. You have highs and lows, up and down, but it's what you do with the song that matters. That's what matters. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so we're both work in progress, but we works in progress doing the darn thing. Come on now, celebrate.
But once again, I just say I just try to do the best I can.
I'm the same though.
But it's all good.
My word for this year is ego less. But it's like when you're in business, the truth is, if you don't pat yourself on the back, you probably are not gonna get. You know.
You have to. I've learned how to do that. You know, and take some time. You know, to do that. You know, just little bitty milestones. You know, go on, girl. Now keep going, because you still ain't arrived. I just feel like I haven't even scratched the surface yet. You know, people may go, oh, Dr. Rowe, this, that, and the other. But I'm like, I'm just getting started. That's how I feel.
Which is amazing. Well, I have one more question, and we're going to go ahead and wrap up. You kind of already asked it, but I ask everybody the same question, and that is, what does it mean to be flawless? What is a flawless woman?
A person that understands her flaws and address them with humility and understand that you'll never be a perfect me, and to just embrace the greatness that reside within yourself, you know, and that's just super important for me. You know, a lot of times, you know, especially with this whole social media thing, you don't have a lot of likes and clicks and loves, and now they got this new icon on Facebook, the little care sign. You know, if I don't have thousands of those every time I make a post, you know, then they don't like me, or I'm not doing enough, or, you know, maybe I need to airbrush that picture, or, I mean, you know what? It's so time out for all of that. And I think it's important for, you know, individuals like you and I, and, you know, those that really understand, to just reach within yourself and understand the gifts and the talents that God has blessed us with, and maximize those bad boys to serve. That's when I feel so good. You know, when I'm able to do that, when I take, you know, the time to do that, and also when I'm blessed with the opportunity to give.
Absolutely. I love that. Maximize your ability to serve. Maximize your opportunity to serve. That is awesome. Definitely want to say thank you. Dr. Rowe, before we close out, please tell people how they can learn more about you, what you're doing, how they can get their copy of the testimony.
Okay, well, you can find me, of course, on LinkedIn, and I am Dr. Royand Patrick Hendrix, like Lonna said, affectionately known as Dr. Rowe. And you can actually get a copy of my book, The Testimony, A Pinnacle of Darkness and Light, on my website, which is consultdream.com. And so I invite you into
You
my
better do
world
the darn
as
thing,
I continue to
man.
grow as Dr. Rowe.
Dr.
I should be a
Rowe.
rapper. As I continue to grow as Dr.
Now she's trying to rap y'all. Don't try to come over here, try to come rap it. I'm just joking. That's a tagline for sure. Come grow with Dr. Rowe. All right, that was awesome. And I want to say thank you again.
Absolutely.
And yes, that's it for today's show. And once again, thank you to our special guest, Dr. Royand Hendrix, also known as Dr. Rowe, for joining us today. And we'd love to hear from you. Email or message us if you'd like more information about our guest, have additional questions, or would like to see your favorite flawless woman featured on the show. Tune in again next week for more candid conversations on what it means to be flawless in an imperfect world. I'll sit down with guests from around the world, hear life lessons, stories of triumph, joy, and pain. And finally, don't forget to live your best life and be flawless. You're worth it.
I love